Oh, hello. I didn't see you there. Just kidding. I knew you were there. It's fine. I knew you were there the whole time. Welcome back, everybody. Now, anyone who's seen my Illuminae review is not at all going to be surprised that I immediately went and put Aurora Rising on hold, which is the new Kristoff and Amie Kaufman book. This is their newest book together. It is the start of a new series. I'm not sure how many books are supposed to be in the series. This one literally just came out in May of this year. So, I mean, it's brand spanking new. So Goodreads has 3 books listed, and it's this one and then like untitled book number 2 and untitled book number 3. I don't know if they have some like legitimate information. So what I was saying is I don't know if Goodreads actually has information to tell them that it's going to be 3 books or if they're just guessing because the Illuminae Files was 3 books. I don't know. But this is definitely the start of a series. Like, for sure there are going to be at least another book. This one is about... It starts off with this guy who is the top dog in this elite space academy. And he is in the leadership. They actually label each like category of person. So there's like an alpha, an ace, which is a pilot, a gearhead, I think, who's like the science, or not just the science, but like the engineer. So computer hacking and building things and fixing things. And then you have the I don't remember what all of the titles are, but you've got a science person, they literally call them a tank. You have the like tactician / fighter person. And then you have the face, which is the diplomat. And so he is an ace, and at the end of the academy, the top aces get to pick their team, basically. And he was the number 1 ace. So he was expecting to be able to pick like the top. And stuff goes sideways, and he does not. And ends up with the dregs of the academy. In the meantime, this girl is found who has been in cryostasis for 200 years. And they wake her up, and she thinks it's 200 years ago still, and like is having weird visions, and she turns out to be the key to saving the universe. But we don't know how or why. So it's a completely different story than the Illuminae Files, but still has not a similar vibe as in like storyline, but it still has the same sense of humor and the same sense of like camaraderie, and like together we can overcome some really terrible things. And I mean, you can definitely tell it's written by the same authors, and I appreciate that because I read it because I liked what was written by these authors. So this is the first physical book I have read in a super long time. Well, with the exception of the, I don't even remember what it was called, but the last book in the Throne of Glass series. Like, I really wanted to know what happened with that one. But this is the first physical book where I've been doing other things, and I'm like, man, I can't wait to finish so I can go home and read my book. Like, I haven't felt that way in a long time. And with the Illuminae series, the Illuminae Files, I did it on audiobook. And so it's a totally different thing because, you know, you can just do it whenever. And I have not been into physically reading books for many years. I've just like really struggled. It's just like, I get books and I'm like, I guess I can read. It feels more like a chore than like something I really want to do. So most of the books that I do are audiobooks. But this one I was like, I can't wait to go home and read my book. Like, I'm really excited. So for pacing, this one, I wouldn't say it starts off a little slow. It doesn't really start off slow, but it starts off more slowly than the Illuminae Files, where you literally like open with a bombing scene. It's not that intense, but almost immediately action starts happening, and again they have this mystery of like, we're really not sure what's going on, so that keeps the pacing going because they're constantly like asking questions and finding answers, and those answers really just drudge up more questions. And so the pacing is really like go, 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 just like the other books. So with this book, with the characterization, I thought it was interesting because the people, you know how we, like, you sometimes say, like, oh, this is the jock and this person is the, like, egghead, or, I mean, not that I would use those terms talking about actual people, but when you're, like, watching a movie or whatever, you recognize, like, the stereotypes or, like, the archetypes or whatever. This book literally labels them as such. It's like, here is the tank, and here is the gearhead, and here is the, like, science nerd, and here is your, like, alpha leader guy. Like, they literally label them and, like, box them into these little cubes. However, this book is told from first-person perspective, and it's told by all of the characters on the team. So it's 7 different people. And which, I don't know, I was a little torn by. I liked that we got to know what was going on in their head, because you really get to understand someone's motivation when you're literally listening to them or reading them, like, think through things and see not just how they're reacting to stuff, but, like, the thought process that went to their reaction to something. So I liked that. However, 7 characters is a lot for one book. And I mean, this is not like an enormous book. It's not dainty, but this isn't a huge book. So for 7 characters, there were definitely characters I wish I would have heard from more. However, I really liked what we got from each one, and I really feel like they played off of each other really well. The other thing I was going to say is each chapter is introduced with the character's name, so you know who's speaking. However, if you leave off in the middle of a chapter, or you fall asleep, or your break ends, or whatever, for whatever reason you have to leave off in the middle of a chapter and you come back, it might not be super obvious who's talking because they are just referring to themselves as me or I. And so you're like, wait, who? Which is not the end of the world. You can just, like, I had to flip back a couple of times and be like, okay, this is the person who's talking right now. However, if you're doing this on audiobook, if the narrator does not do a good job of separating the voices out, or there isn't a full cast, it could get really confusing really easily, because I don't know how they're going to handle that. I don't know if they're going to actually, like, say the name of the person at the beginning of each chapter. Like, I don't know. And I didn't listen to the audiobook because I had to wait longer for it and I wasn't willing to wait. So just something to consider if you are going to do the audiobook. Hold on, let me look it up and see if there's a full cast. Because if so, perfect. That would actually be less confusing than the print book. Well, it says it has a full cast. Now, characterization is really interesting in this book because the whole mystery of the book is, who is Aurora? Like, what makes her special? Why did she survive 200 years in cryostasis when none of the other, like, 10,000 people that were on the ship with her in cryostasis survived? And why are people after her? And what is this weird stuff that she can do? And, like, you know, so it's interesting because one of the questions I kind of think on for my notes is characterization the most important thing in the book? And usually I'm like, no, this is plot based. And while that is true, this is also plot based. I wouldn't call this like a character driven book, except for the fact that the whole mystery revolves around who she is. But the problem is she doesn't know what's going on either. So it's really, like I said, there's not as much character development as I would like, given the fact that there's 7 people that are talking in this book. And you definitely get more from certain characters than you do from others. And I'm guessing that later books will kind of pick the other characters up more. Maybe? I don't know. I mean, obviously, like, the other books haven't even been written yet, so who knows? But, yeah, this one was a little weak on character development. However, I don't think that's going to be the case with the overall series. I feel like this is where they're just picking up momentum, and you got enough to really be invested in the team. For sure. Like, I was invested. I wanted everyone to survive all of the situations. Like, go team. And I really wanted them to start working better as a team, because it is kind of a disaster, which is the whole like shtick of the book, is like, this is the dregs. This is the team that nobody wanted, and here's what we've got. And so I feel like the character development was more focused on them working as a team and learning to work together, not just like, you do this, I do this, and now we have our assigned jobs, but like trusting one another and understanding what the other person's capabilities are, so that they can trust them with certain things. Like, yes, I understand you are good with this. I get it. I trust you to take care of this, because my life is on the line if you botch this up. And so that was really cool to see. So yeah, the character development in this book is minimal on the individual level. I mean, you definitely get some, but it really flourishes in the group dynamic, which, again, I really enjoyed, and I'm looking forward to like getting to know the people individually better. You definitely get some insight into each character. You definitely do. It's just very thin, or thinner than I would like. Oh, one thing that I wrote down here that I want to touch on is, so one of the questions I ask myself is the reader expected to identify with the characters or observe them? And I wrote a little bit of both. Several of the main characters are aliens. Like, some of the team members, or at least two, if not three, I'm trying to remember, at least two, are aliens with obviously like very different worldviews and completely different perspectives, and they're therefore like a completely different set of standards for things and like different priorities of things. And it was really interesting to, because this is told in a first person perspective, like get in their head and really see like how things work. And I mean, obviously these aren't real aliens. Like, you know, I'm not actually getting to see into the mind of an alien, but it was very cool to see someone who like, here's my worldview, here's what's really important, and like, here's what these people keep telling me, and like to see, hold on, let me read what I wrote, because now I'm trying to say it and I'm not nearly as eloquent as I was earlier. Several of the main characters are aliens with very different worldviews, but at the same time, after you get to know them some, you realize even though the way they get to places is so different from us, their motivations are often from a familiar place, which gives you both a sense of commonality and foreignness. This is really interesting. Like, one of the main characters that comes from a culture where family is everything, and the family, they have like 4 sets of parents and like 8 sets of grandparents or something, and have literally like thousands of cousins and all of these relations. They have like an entire clan that they're loyal to and everything, and so everything is like all about family. And it was interesting for his mind to kind of shift into, maybe this group is my family. And, you know, even though his whole mindset is so different, I totally get being like, hey, these people that I've chosen for myself are my family. And there's another character who is like his clan is literally called the Warbringers. And so, I mean, like the elvish version of a Klingon, for lack of a better word. I mean, and I don't really want to give anything away, so I'm going to be kind of vague here, but like some of his stuff that he does seems so actively hostile and so like intense. And then you get into his head and you hear like what he was actually thinking, and you're like, that makes sense. I get that. I understand that. Like, I don't know that I would have reacted exactly the same way, but I totally get where you're coming from. And I just thought it was cool to be like, here are these people that are not actually human that you can still connect with. And again, I realize they're not real people, but they're real to me while I'm reading, okay? So for the storyline, it is really action oriented still. There's a lot. It's a plot driven book, but it's interesting because this time the plot literally revolves around this group member, and therefore it's like a character driven mystery plot book. If that makes sense at all. She is the plot. She is the mystery. She is the puzzle we're trying to solve. And they get into all kinds of situations trying to like figure this out and hunt out answers and like seek clues. But in the end, they're trying to figure out like what the heck is going on with her. And so because of that, it is... I'm going to say it's a character-based mystery plot book. I'm just going to throw all of the terms together and be like, that's my answer. I'm committing to all of the things. When you can't decide one thing, you decide all of the things. The focus is really, really interior and really psychological because each chapter is told from the first person perspective. I don't think there's any part of the book that isn't the character telling you what's going on. So you get their immediate reaction, like in here reaction, not necessarily like what they actually do reaction. And it turns the book, it gives it this whole other level, this like psychological level where you hear entire arguments they have with themselves and their fears and how they keep a rein on those fears or they don't, and how those fears tinge their decisions and how seeds of distrust can bloom because they are, watered by these other things. And I was here for it. I loved it. Again, I thought this was going to be a standalone book. And I had another book recently, I can't remember what it was, where I was burned by this as well. And I was like, no! I thought this was going to be standalone, and it's not. So I'm sad that I couldn't just binge this, because this leaves off, this is definitely, it's not like the Illuminae series where each book was a self-contained story and all of the stories tied together. This left off on a cliffhanger. And so you don't have the characters fully developed because there's more books where they're going to be more developed. And I just want to get my teeth into that character development. I just want to learn more about these people. And yeah, I want to know what's happening too, but I'm like, hey, I just got to kind of learn to know you, and now you're gone for a year or two while we wait for the next book to be written, and I am sad about it. So yeah, this book has a little bit of everything. There are definitely some action scenes. It's not the focus of the book. This is not constant action like the Illuminae Files were, but there is definitely action in here. There is a lot of psychological analyses going on of people wondering, why am I thinking these things? Is this right? There is character development on the team level more so than the personal level. There's a super interesting plot that's just really starting to get going. And like I said, this is one where every question you have that gets answered just ends up opening up more questions. So you're left just going, what is happening? And not because nothing happens, but because you learn just enough to be like, oh no, what is happening? Yeah, can you tell I'm tortured by the fact that I'm going to have to wait a long time for the next book? Why do I do these things to myself? So the frame and the tone. This has a much more background. This has a much more detailed background than the Illuminae Files. This not only takes place in space, but it's like part of it takes place in like a tear in rib time. Oh my gosh, you guys. It's 9 o'clock. I've been rocking a headache for like the last 4 hours. I worked 8 hours already. I've already filmed another video. My brain is like, I'm over it, girlfriend. You need to go to bed. But this book is due in like 2 days. So I just want to get this video filmed so I can take the book back. So they have discovered a tear in time-space and have learned how to like build gates to go through the tear so that you can like cross vast distances and stuff. And there's a lot of description given to this weird in-between space that's like inside the tear. And it's really cool and it's very interesting. And it doesn't necessarily like, the description itself doesn't necessarily impact the story so much, but it does give it some flavor and some interest. And I really appreciated that. I feel like they do a really good job of knowing exactly how much detail to give to kind of start a picture in your mind and then let you fill in the rest so that you have this like really, I have a very vivid picture in my head, but the amount of detail they give is not excessive. So they do a good job of not bogging the story down with like excessive detail, but at the same time, you know exactly what this looks like. And I really appreciate that because I don't enjoy books like Lord of the Rings where there's just excessive description. I probably will never read a Charles Dickens book because it's been told to me that he can spend like 7 paragraphs describing a blade of grass, and I'm like, yeah, good. So, a perfectly detailed background, if you ask me. Now, the frame of this, the tone is this like frantic desperation. And I don't really want to describe too much why, other than I will start to say that the team itself does not blend well at the beginning. And things go off the rails from there. So, overall, I loved this book. It is definitely a starter book to a series, and not in a bad way. Like I said, they've just left themselves room for more books to grow into. While I wanted more character development, I wasn't sitting here going, man, I just don't care about this character because they're not fully developed. That's not it. It was just, we got to the end and I was like, I want more. I want to know more about these characters because I love them. And that is my seal of approval. If I'm like, I can't wait to read more, I can't wait to find out more, I cannot wait for the next book to come out, I miss these characters in my life, that is excellent. So that's what I have to say about that book. All right, guys. That was, in case you've forgotten, Aurora Rising by Kristoff and Amie Kaufman. I don't know why I couldn't remember that. I literally said it a minute ago, but it is the first in the Aurora Cycle, trilogy. We don't know. Series. Goodreads thinks there's going to be 3 at least. Here's hoping. The next books, I have no idea when they're coming out. So you and I, we can wait together. Like, come on. Bated breath. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Or maybe 2. A double thumbs up. And make sure to subscribe before you leave. And until next time, happy reading. I just realized this is the second video I filmed. And this tape dispenser has been there the entire time. Foiled. That's from the other day, I think, when I had to like tape up my Harry Potter because he fell over. My teeth look so white. It's the light, it's the ring light, I'm pretty sure. I mean, not that my teeth are gross, but I'm always like, ooh. Also, the ring light makes my hair look greasy, even though I washed it this morning. So, there you go. One of the questions is, are there serious characters followed through and developed over several related novels? And I wrote, I sure hope so! Exclamation point. I have like 4 novels and that's it. So I don't count the Harry Potter series because you have to own the Harry Potter series. You just do. You just do.